I'm your host, Peter Komendowski, and welcome to Surviving Bad, where we explore stories of survival, hope, and inspiration. Today, we explore the unique relationship of women and weed. Science is leading us to understanding that there are unique relationships between cannabis and women's health. Dr. LaTisha Bader exposes trends and practices that exploit women, or at the very least, make women vulnerable to harm from cannabis. Let's meet Dr. LaTisha Bader. LaTisha, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here. Please share a little bit about yourself.
I will. So I am a licensed psychologist. And if you start the story, I'm actually a sports psychologist, and that'll come around in a little bit of why that's important. But I'm a licensed psychologist. I'm a licensed addictions counselor, and then I'm a certified mental performance consultant. That just means I got to work at the beginning of my career, is working with like high achieving individuals for Olympics and teams. And then ironically, this is why I'm talking to you now about substances. Because that's actually what got me into this, is that every day we're trying to have a peak performance just as a human being. And so my kind of niche in the world is to figure out how substances can kind of get in the way of that. But what I love to do, my full-time job is actually I'm a chief clinical officer for women's recovery. And then you will start to really understand why I took a keen interest in understanding this particular substance as they industrialized it and how it impacts women and women's health, and especially our community and our family. And that's what I do every day.
Yeah, we don't have, it's so difficult to be politically correct when you talk about differences between men and women. Yet, if we look at big industries marketing, they exploit those differences all the time without any compunction for any rational behavior. It's just simply, if it's an advantage, we'll take advantage of it. What are you seeing in terms of some of the biggest mistruths in the approach of cannabis and women?
Well, I started to use a phrase, there's like three things when we unpack what you just said, but I've started to use a phrase that says like substances are gender inclusive. Like substances do not care how old you are, where you come from, how much money you have in your bank, and they really don't care wherever you are on the gender spectrum. But they are not gender neutral. And so again, without the caveat of kind of getting into that moment about the binary of gender, as I say, because of how biological bodies are made, hormones, fat solubility, right? Enzymes, how we process substances in particular, cannabis, but all substances actually have a telescoping effect on the female body. And so that means that we start lower sometimes, but we do not go slower. So because of substances, we can actually increase tolerance pretty quickly because of our bodies and biological nature. And then the substance actually has a more detrimental impact to who we are. And so that would be like, Peter, if you and I were going to go 1 for 1, right? Whether we were drinking or smoking or vaping or using cannabis, is that it would actually have a 2 to 1 impact on my body. It would be harder on my body than your body. And so you got to know a little science about cannabis in particular. It's actually a fat soluble drug. That might not mean anything to anybody, but like alcohol and nicotine are water soluble drugs. So that means we can actually predict them better when they come in the body and come out of the body. That's why we can have, breathalyzers and little cards that say, if I drink this much in this many hours, it will be out of my body. But cannabis isn't playing by the rules like that. And so we're processing it differently, and it's actually even harder on our bodies for that part. The gender part also comes with marketing. You talked about it, right? So as soon as marketing any substance starts, I have to tell you that women are first and foremost, we're actually one of the very first thoughts that happens when it comes to substances and marketing, but it's because we are the marketing. And so between cartoons and buxom, right, women, cannabis, the very first marketing that actually came to my house was a co-ed in a very small outfit, a college girl, and then a woman laying on a rug, and it said, wouldn't you want to hit this? So then it was referring to cannabis. But that's what happens with marketing. As soon as women are the marketing and that fizzles out and we get our first generation of people that want to use this substance, is that then we become kind of a later thought. And currently right now, the industry is marketing very directly to women. We're actually like about 59% of new users are women coming to the cannabis market, trying all of the products that are out there for us. And there are a plethora of products for us.
I've heard from marketing professionals that women are a litmus test for the likability of a product. that women are the early adopters of products before men are, but men copycat that adoption process.
We do. We also manage a lot of the household income. And so when we're like, right, we're going to the store or the dispensary, we decide where our money is going to go. So we'll say that. So if a product kind of stops selling to the male market, right, a younger male market, they'll actually just put a pink label on it, charge twice as much often, and then women will pick it up. When that fizzles out, unfortunately, then we'll pick up another marginalized community, right? And we'll put a rainbow on it, right? And then we'll change it to a BIPOC community, and we'll put community on there. And so as soon as it fizzles out, we'll change the product, the marketing, but not the product.
Fascinating. Well, we'll take a short break. We come back, we'll continue our conversation with Dr. LaTisha Bader. Stay tuned. You don't want to miss this.
The black truck? Hey, Christina from accounting.
Yeah, hi.
Hey, I used to date a girl named Christina.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and then she dumped me for my best friend. You want to see some photos of them that I took?
I don't.
I thought we talked about this, buddy.
Buzz and overshared again?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna call a car.
That's a smart idea.
So yeah, I know, that's why I did it.
Hey, you're gonna get back to the top of the mountain.
Does that mean I'm gonna get back with Christina?
No.
Oh.
No.
Every second, 127 new devices connect to the internet. You can feel it happening. Our digital world expanding with every breath. We're entering a whole new era of connectivity, and MediaCom will be ready to power it with one of the nation's first 10G platforms. We'll be bringing you more speed, more capacity, more security, and the power to do more than you ever dreamed possible.
Welcome back to Surviving Bad. We're talking with Dr. LaTisha Bader, an expert on cannabis and performance sports, with an important message on the unique challenges women face with cannabis. You know, you talked about the biology, the physiology of women being different. Well, that interaction with the drug has to do with potency and frequency of use. What are some of the trends you're seeing that are different amongst men and women?
So a lot of it is going to be some of the products that we're choosing, but it really is the understanding that this drug has transformed and metamorphosized, if you will, within the last 10 years. So I have to take you back for a little bit of a history lesson. I hope you stay with me. But when we talk about potency, we really are talking about the intensity of the product. So Peter, if you and I were right, we're going to have a night drinking and I brought out some like high noon, it would be one kind of a night, right? But if I opened up my cabinet and I said that we're going to hit Everclear all night long, right? Or 151, your face changed. We understand that the potency of alcohol is through the proof, right? It literally says it on the label, federally regulated to say it on the label because of that. But cannabis has had its own journey. And so if you have to go back a long time ago in a land far away, we first find the natural plant in a Chinese emperor's tomb. And we're going to have a little history lesson. So I think 2900 BC. His potency of his product was 0.03% THC. So remember, when we break open this plant, the THC, the stuff that gets you high, and the CBD was supposed to be the 1-to-1 ratio that kept this plant really neutral, right? That's why we could say it was of the earth or natural. But that, right, those are a land far away and a long time ago. So we bring it into the now, and we got interested in this plant in the 60s. And so we actually started to seize the drug, and that means like to take the drug as a government and break it apart and kind of test it. When we first started to do that, we started to see like 0.2% THC, 0.3% is the next number that you need to put into your noodle. And that's where we stop and we call it hemp. And everybody's kind of started to hear what that word is. That's why it's okay that the Farm Bill says we could grow an agricultural product. And so that's what we all decided was going to be the potency of THC in the agricultural product. 0.3% THC. I usually joke because I'm usually around sport fields and I say, I could probably go out to your sport field, grab some grass, put it in some kind of a bowl and smoke it and get way higher than the Chinese emperor or even hemp. For how many chemicals and synthetics we have on our turf grass, like our grass and sport. But though bringing those numbers into the now, we talk fondly about like Woodstock, right? And it changed a culture and it was music. But the best weed that they had there was 4% THC. Everything that I'm going to get to tell you about science or anybody that's bringing you the facts on cannabis only got to use research weed. I like research level cannabis, and that's 12% THC. In academics, we call high potency, and I'll put air quotes, right? Because most of us walking around, especially in Colorado and various other states that went recreational really quickly, is that 10% is supposed to be sort of the max for understanding what high potency cannabis is. But right now, if you saw what we saw, and it's what people can get anywhere in the dark market, right, or the dispensaries, is we can get plant-based products up to 45% THC. And we did not stop there. We took that plant and kind of concentrated it in street terms. I call it like juicing it, right? So we took a huge plant and brought it down to the absolute concentrated material that we could. It's a science experiment that gets us right with little beakers and extraction, and that is 99.9% THC. That has literally been within the last maybe 15 years, definitely within the last 10 or 5 years, that we've turned this plant, if you will, into a synthesized concentrate that has a potency that our brains and our bodies do not understand and are having a very difficult time tolerating.
Now, would this be referred to as genetic modification? We talk about GMO foods and non-GMO foods.
Yeah, like sugar's not sugar, right? When it comes from McDonald's. And so I tell people when we were first kind of presenting this product and people like, it's all natural. What's the difference of synthetic weed, right? And we would say that, and that was like the K2s or the spices or things like that, where it didn't at all come from a plant. There's nothing natural about this. I think most of the cannabis that we interact with actually is some type of modified, some type of synthetic product. And if you actually see it, you have to think about that is we've turned a plant into a dab. We've turned it into a resin. We've turned it into a solid form, right? Almost like a butter, a shatter. I use all the words, but it's the science experiment, right? From taking a plant and inhaling it and smoking it, combusting it in our bodies, and then taking a concentrate, which is a solid, and turning that into vapor right in front of our face, right? Like 700 to 900 degrees when we decide to vape that. It is literally a science experiment. So I have to think that synthetic, modified, natural is not a word I would use about cannabis anywhere. Even as we grow the plant, we've really significantly reduced the growing time. We have frustrated the female plant to where she is giving off so much resin that it's not a natural way that the plant would have even grown out in the wild, if you will, back in the day. So I have no trouble saying synthetic, modified. We're scientists. We're not gardeners anymore. We're not growing that. We're manufacturing drugs.
There you go. Well, we're going to take another short break, and I'm excited to come back and continue our conversation with Dr. LaTisha Bader. See you all after the break.
Multiple studies have shown that marijuana can slow both driver reaction and response time, which can be really dangerous. He's here. He's here. Wait. What?
I can't drive.
Why? My. Oh.
Today, more than ever, you need fast, reliable internet. At MediaCom, we want you to know you can count on us. Our fiber-powered 100% gigabit technology network was built for the future. We have enormous capacity and power and 99.99% network reliability. So even though these are uncertain times, we're prepared. And you can be certain we'll keep your world connected.
Welcome back to Surviving Bad. I'm your host, Peter Komendowski, and we're talking about marijuana, cannabis, weed, and women who in many instances are targeted by tactics of the marijuana industry. But there is another sort of a story in the news now about the NCAA possibly taking off the restrictions on marijuana use, which there are a lot of opinions on that. Let's find out what Dr. Bader has to say.
I love that you said it even that, and you saw me go, So what many organizations have done, right? Global organizations, sport organizations, is that they have moved to taking it off their banned substance list. Not necessarily that they're not still interested in how we use substances as athletes and our health and our safety, but that I won't potentially have a disciplinary action for using it. So it moves that substance into something that's banned, right? Like something that's going to hurt our performance or make an unfair platform for athletes. And they're moving it into a category more like alcohol, right? Or nicotine, even caffeine, caffeine actually is still banned first in some places, in some sports, little known fact on that, but is that it comes to a place where we start to become we're now kind of responsible for ourselves. I don't need a league to tell me when and how to use things, right? So they're actually trying to kind of encourage potentially some professionalism, but it's still personal safety. And so I think in that part is I might not be penalized for using this substance, but me as an athlete, as a performer, still has to know that the significant ergolytic, and we use two fun Latin words, right, is ergogenic, things that help our performance, and ergolytic, things that don't. And we need to know that as athletes, literally almost down to the stopwatch of how long my neural pathways are slowed for cannabis. Fun fact, 24 hours. How long it disrupts my motor movement, right? That it has significant impact to my cardiovascular health, I have slowed visual acuity, I have slowed motor movement, attention, memory. Welcome to vaping. Vaping alone, the route of administration of how we use it, right? But where it's that full body experience for cannabis is that's what you can start to see some leagues are saying, like, look, okay, we don't want to get in trouble anymore, right? And so they're honestly giving the empowerment to us as women, as athletes, to figure out how this substance is going to be part of our athletic endeavors. I have a whole slide. I talk about it as ergolytic substances, and I say, like, sorry, not sorry if your drug of choice is on here, because like alcohol alone is never ergogenic. We have to recover from our recovery, right? When people say that, I'm like, oh, I use cannabis to sleep. It helps me recover. It helps me unwind. It helps me. And I said, well, yeah, but if you have to recover, like from your recovery, you're probably already slower. And that's what we're finding. You're less healthy. Your ligaments are not healing well, right? So we know that. I mean, if you're looking at me and I'm looking at you, we know drugs work, and they each have their way to work, right? They help us, like alcohol is sedating. It helps us relax, but it does so by dehydrating us. Right. So even if we know that kind of that 1-to-1 ratio is 1 unit of alcohol, I have to make up for it, especially as a performance athlete, with hydration, with 1-to-1 for water. We're learning for cannabis, even smoking, have a combustion guy, and that just means a guy that understands everything that we can do with smoke and making small fires in front of our face, is he's gathering some information. Y'all could be up to like a 1-to-10 ratio for smoking cannabis, is how dehydrating this is to our entire system. So I always say that it's one of my favorite paragraphs in the NFL, the Players Association, in their collective bargaining agreement. It just is a simple sentence. It says, I'm responsible for what I put in my body. And I love that, especially as human beings. And I'm going to parlay it kind of even into women. At certain points of our lives, I could do something 2 months ago and it could have a very small impact on me, right? Drinking, everything like that. But like at a time of pregnancy, something that I would do is very different, has a very different impact on my body than it did a couple months ago. Same for athletics, right? Like same for as just a human being, is there's some critical times in our life that we might want to be mentally fast, physically fast, be able to sleep better with better circadian rhythms. We might want to be able to recover better. We might not want to disrupt our digestive tract. Even like that, right? Like me having bubble guts on Tuesday might not be that harsh, but if I have it the night of the game or the big game, that's a different kind of impact on my performance as a human being.
it's an interesting landscape because we also we have all, it's, let's face it, marijuana is the new kid on the block. Cigarettes and alcohol and tobacco are oldsters. And the promises of cannabis are all over the place. I mean, it just, there's so many promises. What a miracle product this is. And of course, we're realizing those are lies. They're just not the truth.
Well, and we clocked it. I love that you said that, promises. At one point in time, we were doing the research, is like it was almost 30 ailments that cannabis was going to be able to cure or treat, or I don't know, regrow, all the things. But I love our chief medical officer said, if a drug does more than 3 things, maybe 2, you might need to be skeptical. And I was like, what do you mean by that? And she said, if you took a Tylenol, and it would be like, it helps with fever, it helps with, like knee pain, and then it can regrow your hair, and it helps with your libido, right? We wouldn't trust that product, but we did so with cannabis. And we took a lot of the promises to heart that we are now scientifically unlearning.
Well, these are great points, and we have some time left together. We're going to take a short break, and we're going to ask Dr. Bader to share some insights, some comments, and inspiration, things you need to know and you don't want to miss hearing about. See you all after the break.
Today, more than ever, you need fast, reliable internet. At MediaCom, we want you to know you can count on us. Our fiber-powered 100% gigabit technology network was built for the future. We have enormous capacity and power and 99.99% network reliability. So even though these are uncertain times, we're prepared, and you can be certain we'll keep your world connected.
Welcome back. Today on Surviving Bad, we've talked about the unique relationships between cannabis and women's health. Let's see what insights and inspiration our guest, Dr. LaTisha Bader, has to share. And I know, Doctor, one of the things that is really a talking point here, it's important for people to understand, is withdrawal, which nobody really associates in general with cannabis.
Well, it's because we didn't have it a while back. And I know that this is one of the concepts is when we were doing that 4% weed, the 10 like THC, the withdrawal actually wasn't something so significant. And so when we talk about that too, the impacts, and that when we say higher potency, that's what we start to talk about, the concentrates, the distillates, right? The dabs, is that when we get into that, because of that potency, there is now, even according to our medical journals, right? We have it in our DSM. It's our diagnostic manual that we can diagnose what's happening to you, your brain and your body. Is we know cannabis intoxication, and y'all, we can do all of that. We know that it slows us down. We know what it does. We know it helps with this, that, and the other. But what we don't often know is what it looks like when it comes out of our bodies. And so what I want to talk about is a little bit about women's health in particular, kind of when it's coming out of our bodies, and actually when it's in our body. I'm going to caveat to that one first. So thinking about intoxication, especially when it's just me, right, on board is one thing. But I do want to think about during certain times in our lives, like for pregnancy or breastfeeding, that there is a very interesting caveat for what cannabis is doing into our bodies. When we are pregnant, right, there is no safe place. There's no safe amount of use because the cannabis can freely cross the placenta. And if you don't know what that organ is, kind of look it up. It's a very interesting organ, but it would be what sort of protects what I do from the child, from the fetus inside of me. And so there's no protection from that. So cannabis can freely cross the placenta. And even after that, when we talk about breastfeeding, right, is that I really want you to know that the minute that it goes into my body, it can be found, cannabis, THC, the stuff that gets me high, can be found in breast milk as quickly as 1 hour and can last up to 6 weeks. And so if you think about that, sometimes women will engage in behaviors, right? Maybe we'll drink or smoke, and we'll try to take a pause on offering breast milk to our children, but that's not a place, right? You can't not do something for 6 weeks. And so it'll actually build up, and you can find almost 8 times as much THC in breast milk as you could even in my body. Please know this is not something to mess with during any part of development. It messes with my endocannabinoid system. It'll mess with any developing endocannabinoid system in my body. All right, so we did the it got me high part, but let's do the it gets out of my body. So what is starting to happen with cannabis withdrawal, because of the potency, because of also how much and the frequency of our use and the types of use, is that we are using cannabis more and more and more often. We've actually had to change the addiction rates for cannabis. Those addiction rates for that low potency cannabis used to be more like kind of alcohol, kind of a 1 in 10. We are now up to more like nicotine rates. Like 30% of people that are using it in a disordered, diseased fashion. So when this withdrawal starts to happen to our body, say that I'm done, Peter, I'm done, I'm using, is that withdrawal will start to happen. And they are not symptoms that we would normally think of, right? We have cannabis hyperemesis syndromes, a lot of vomiting, we think about that, but it's restless, irritable, anxiety, mental health concerns. It's going to peak at day 4 and last for 16. And there's a resurgence at the end. Fun fact, remember, cannabis withdrawal twice as hard for women because of that biological nature of who we are and the fat soluble nature of the drug. But this is a really intense thing. So I say treatment. Please start to have conversations. Maybe think about making a tolerance break yourself, right? Seeing if you can get the substance out of your body without this happening. Harm reduction, even just a decreasing potency, decreasing frequency, but cannabis intoxication is real and has a lot of impact that it didn't used to have 10 years ago. And cannabis withdrawal is very intense. And so that's why I say, please consider it just as impactful as other substances, and that we would require and need treatment for it.
I thank you so much for sharing this really important information today, and look forward to getting feedback after the show airs, because this is new stuff and it's really important and powerful. Thank you all for watching us today. Check out our website at healthyiowa.org and keep your eye on MediaCom MC22 for our next episode of Surviving Bad, where we explore stories of survival, hope, and inspiration. On MediaCom MC22, your local programming leader.